You were born in the small town where bike engines spoke louder than people. Your earliest memory wasn't a lullaby. It was the sound of a carburetor coughing back to life. Your father wasn't famous. He wasn't rich. But in that town, respect wasn't measured in followers or bank accounts. It was measured in trust, and every rider trusted him. He was the man who could tilt his head slightly, listen for 5 seconds, and say, "I have seen the problem." Grease permanently lived under his fingernails. His back curved from decades bent over engines. His hands were rough, scarred, steady. Hands that built, repaired, saved. He didn't say, "I love you" much. He showed it by putting a wrench in your hand at 8 years old and saying, "Feel it, don't just look at it. Machines talk." And you listened. By 19, you hated that shop. The smell of gasoline clung to your clothes. The ringing of metal on metal echoed in your head long after closing. Same broken bikes, same small-town gossip, same customers arguing over price. You felt trapped. Every time a rider roared out of town, dust kicking up behind them, you watched like they were escaping something you were stuck inside. You wanted bigger roads, louder engines, power. But no matter how much you complained, no matter how many times you swore you'd leave, you always came back to help your father. Because deep down, you loved the man. And leaving him felt like betrayal. The afternoon they showed up, the air felt different. Your father had driven 2 towns over to pick up parts. You were alone, sleeves rolled up, halfway through replacing a clutch plate. Then you heard it. Not the usual sputtering engines. These were heavy, controlled. 3 bikes rolled in like thunder with discipline. Chrome polished like weapons, leather jackets stiff. Boots hit the concrete floor like they owned it. Patches stitched across their backs. You didn't recognize the insignia, but you recognized authority. One of them removed his helmet slowly. His eyes scanned the shop before landing on you. "Old man around?" You swallowed. "No, but I can handle it." They looked at you like you were a kid pretending to be a man. Still, they left the bikes. You didn't rush. You didn't guess. You didn't try to impress them with talk. You worked. You adjusted the carburetors carefully, realigned timing, replaced worn belts. You treated those machines like they mattered. Because they did. By nightfall, all 3 bikes purred like they'd been reborn. When they returned, they didn't speak at first. They listened. One of them slowly nodded. "How old are you?" 19. A slight smile. "Good work." That was it. But it meant something. They came back the next week, and the next. And they never asked for your father again. They asked for you. They lingered longer each time, asked about your life, asked if you'd ever thought about leaving town, asked if you ever wanted to ride further than the next county line. You told yourself you were just talking. Then one night they said it. "Come by the clubhouse." You knew what that meant. This wasn't a weekend riding group. This was a club. Rules, territory, loyalty, structure, power. You told yourself you were just curious, just looking. But that night something shifted. The clubhouse wasn't flashy. No neon lights, no open invitations. Just a warehouse converted into something that felt sealed. You walked in and felt eyes on you, assessing, measuring. You didn't become a member, you became a prospect, which meant you were nothing until proven otherwise. You cleaned, you ran errands, you stood outside events for hours, you carried crates, you fetched drinks, you spoke only when spoken to. You learned fast. They organized massive bike events and controlled who sold what. They ran security for concerts. They protected businesses, meaning nobody operated in certain areas without paying respect. Their rule was simple: loyalty over everything. You liked that, because for the first time in your life, you felt seen, important. Your first real job felt small. Just ride with 2 senior members and collect money from a man who hadn't paid for event protection. No guns, no chaos, Just a conversation. At least, that's what you told yourself. When the bikes rolled into his yard, the man already knew why you were there. You could see it in the way his shoulders tightened. The senior members spoke calmly. Too calmly. You stood behind them, silent, arms crossed, watching. The man tried to explain. Slow business, bad timing. He just needed more time. One of the seniors stepped closer and said, "You agreed." That was enough. The envelope came out quickly. His hands were shaking. And when you looked into his eyes, you saw it. Fear. Real fear. And something inside you liked it. Later, that thought would bother you. But not that night. On the ride back, wind hitting your chest, city lights flashing past, you felt stronger than before. Bigger. Like you had stepped into a new version of yourself. They handed you cash that night. More than 2 weeks' pay at the shop. It felt good. Too good. Then came the warehouse run. 4 bikes, late night, headlights off for part of the road. No one talked much. You stopped behind an old warehouse. A truck was already waiting. Boxes moved fast, clean, organized. Everyone knew their role. Motorcycle parts that skipped paperwork. You didn't ask questions. You unloaded. You stood watch. You scanned the road. Nothing dramatic happened, but you understood something important that night. This wasn't random. This wasn't chaos. This was structure. Money moving quietly, supply lines, planning. The president handed you an envelope afterward. "You're earning your place." And you believed him. Soon the money became weekly. You upgraded your bike, bought better boots, changed how you dressed. You even walked differently, slower, more confident. Your father noticed. He didn't ask where the money came from, but he knew. Parents always know. Sometimes he would just look at you, not angry, not loud, just disappointed. That look made you uncomfortable, so you stayed out later. The third time changed you. A rival group showed up at a bike meet they weren't supposed to attend. Engines revved louder, words got sharper. You told yourself it would just be intimidation. It wasn't. A punch flew. Someone rushed one of your members. You didn't think. You moved. You grabbed the man and slammed him against a car, hard. You pinned him there, felt his breath shake, felt his heart racing under your arm. And you didn't let go. Not right away. When it was over, the rivals left. It wouldn't return. The president looked at you differently that night. "You're not just a mechanic anymore." That should have scared you. Instead, it thrilled you. Months later, you earned your patch. They stood you in the center of the clubhouse, the room quiet. When they handed you the leather, it felt heavy. Heavy like armor. Heavy like identity. You put it on, and something shifted. You weren't the mechanic's son anymore. You were part of something feared. You were 19, making more money some months than your father ever had. The shop became second. The club became first. You came home late, sometimes not at all. One night, your father spoke quietly in the kitchen. "I didn't raise you for that life." No shouting, just tired truth. You snapped back before you could stop yourself. "You raised me to fix bikes forever?" The words landed harder than you meant them to. He didn't argue. He just nodded once and walked away. And that silence followed you longer than any rival ever did. The words hung in the air like smoke. You saw the hurt in his face, but pride kept you silent. Tuesday morning, your father collapsed in the shop. Heart attack. Doctors said stress, years of overwork. He never missed a day, until he missed all of them. At the funeral, your club stood in the back, respectful, silent. But they didn't belong there. For the first time, the patch felt heavy. Not powerful, heavy. Afterward, your mother grabbed your jacket. Her voice didn't shake. "If you don't leave that life, I will end mine." She wasn't dramatic. She meant it. You saw something in her eyes that night you'd never seen before. Not fear of death, fear of losing you. That was worse. You didn't sleep. You thought about your father's hands, grease under the nails, back bent, steady. You thought about the fear in that man's eyes when you pinned him against the car. You thought about the envelope money, the power, the cost. The brotherhood gave you strength, but it took peace. 1 week later, you met the president. You told him you were done. He studied you for a long time. Once you leave, you're gone. No threats, just truth. You handed him your patch. It felt lighter in your hands than it ever did on your back. You walked out. No music, no drama, just silence. You moved across California. Different city, fresh start. You opened a small motorcycle repair shop, just like your father. Grease under your nails again. Back bent over engines, hands steady. This time, you didn't hate it, because now you understood something you were too young to see before. Freedom isn't always loud. Power isn't always strength. And respect earned through fear doesn't let you sleep at night. Sometimes riders with patches come in. They ask, "You ever ride with a club?" You smile. "I used to know some guys." Then you get back to work. Because now, when an engine roars back to life under your hands, it's enough. And for the first time in years, the noise doesn't drown out your peace.